Last year at COFES, John Veller gave the Saturday keynote and kind of, what's the word for it? Scared the shit out of everybody. We immediately refer to it as the doom and gloom keynote. And he made some rather amazing observations, any one of which is quite interesting and concerning, but taken together really are eye-opening, to say the least. But one of the things that he found out, or one of the things that he talked about in his presentation was some research that was funded by the U.S. government. Actually, John Cummings, who's sitting here, was at the Department of Homeland Security at the time and was behind some of the funding. It was funded to do work at Sandia National Labs. Lori Parrott is here. She'll have a few words. Los Alamos and Argonne National Labs. And what they decided to do was to spend $60 million developing system dynamic models of critical infrastructure. And there are 18 critical infrastructure areas that they focused on. And John said that he'd been working for the last several years. Well, I guess it's not going to happen. We can try it one more way, the old-fashioned style.
To develop a simulation system that would allow us to simulate the impacts of natural disasters across all industries. And the level of detail, you can read it up there, unbelievable level of detail put into this thing. But more importantly, this is just the
Oh, come on.
refinery model. If I go to the next slide, I have agricultural models. I even have a corn model. I have a liquidity model. I have an insurance model. I have all sorts of models related to different phenomena in business and in finance. There's over 1,200 of them that was put together in order to be able to look at these situations so that when we had another major national catastrophe, we could quickly spot where the potential impacts are and see if we could mitigate them or what we could do to deal with them. Because many of these impacts, much like 9/11, things happened a long way away from New York. The impacts of 9/11 were heard around the world because of what was in that building and what was being done in that building. And the same thing would be true of any other natural disaster. I went to the Department of Homeland Security in Sandia, which did this development in this, and I said, guys, would you do the following? Would you be willing to stick this in a not-for-profit organization so that industry could come to you and say, we'd like to look at the impacts for our business or for our clients? And that's something I'm still working on because we've spent $60 million of your money to build this. And it needs to be in place where we can get some value out of it for the nation and for where we go in the future.
Okay. Seemed like a good idea. So that was the Saturday morning keynote at COFES last year. And about 30 minutes later, the Center for Understanding Change was born. Because I said, we can do that. We know the people. We know the right people. Most of them are here. And we sat around the table and we gathered a group together and we founded the Center for Understanding Change. And we have a great team together. We have developed a partnership with Sandia National Lab. We've signed an agreement with Sandia, with Argonne. We are working on a cooperative research and development agreement with Los Alamos. We've had some excellent conversations you're going to hear with Chris Wood. Turns out there's a lot more to these system dynamic models than we thought. They're incredibly valuable tools to understanding the way things work. But there are some some challenges with them in that it takes a great deal of scientific knowledge and understanding to understand really what to do with the information that you get out of them. We saw one report on extremely well executed on the impact of flu vaccine for one of the recent flu epidemics, and there were several different choices put up, and the report was about that thick. And the report was not designed to have let's just say, a political decision maker have an easy time to digest it. Turns out that when we started putting this team together, we realized that we had some assets available that could apply to this that would be game changers in a number of ways. One of which is a visualization system that Joe and I have sketched out. We refer to that as one of our secret sauces. Dave, where are you? Dave Ullman's decision support system, which does Bayesian decision making, is an excellent tool to help understand what is it that we need to know, which questions do we need to ask and get more information on in order to get a better decision. And then finally, Mike Riddle has been working on a project to rethink the way systems are written. And it turns out that the problem that we have, and the problem we're facing in looking at all of these models, is a perfect opportunity and a perfect platform to address some of the technical issues that we have in dealing with the 1,200 different models. And so we've developed a series of secret sauces, and at the Center for Understanding Change, C4UC, Tech Suite here, on tomorrow morning, after the keynote, they will be showing the detailed view of what the Center for Understanding Change is. And then Mike will be talking about his secret sauce in the afternoon session. But what I wanted you to know is that we now have a not-for-profit group which has some very critical, let's see if I can make this easier to deal with. Does that work? We have some founding principles that I want to put out here, because the only reason this works is as a not-for-profit. There are a lot of people in the decision-making business, and there are a lot of people. May I have a hand for Joseph? There are a lot of people in this business, and there's a lot of money going around, but it's all about risk. And there's tons of money and tons of proprietary stuff, and nobody wants to share anything because they're afraid somebody else is going to eat their lunch. The only way this works, and the only way that we get access to it, is if we are fundamentally not-for-profit working in the public interest. And we are founded as a 501c3, and our fundamental goal is to increase the science and to educate the public. The next thing that's important is that we've made the decision that as a mindset, we're not better than anybody else. We have different sets of assets, but if somebody's already doing something, we need to assume that they're doing something and that they know what they're talking about, and we need to work with them collaboratively rather than competitively. The next one is that we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, that negative findings, particularly when you're talking about medical research and other aspects, negative findings are just as important as positive findings, and we want to continue to remember that. The third thing is that we are domain constrained. This is a huge field, and we will only be able to deal with the domains that we have the tools for and the expertise for, and that we can grow that a little bit at a time. But from the get-go, we need to be operational. We can't wait to do everything all at once. The next thing is that we can't help ourselves unless we help the world. If we cut the U.S. as a whole, if we cut U.S. consumption to zero, if we just sort of disappeared and the rest of the world could exist, the rest of the world is still screwed. And if there was just one person left in the U.S., that person would still be affected by what's going on in the rest of the world. So unless we help them, we're screwed. And we need to continue to remind ourselves of that. We also, purple means we're neither red nor blue, and for those of you not from the U.S., we're neither Democratic nor Republican. We're not taking sides in any of the issues. We are, regardless of our own personal feelings, we are trying to inform and help decisions being made. We're not trying to make those decisions. This Korean text here says in Korean, we won't impose semantic structure on data. The reason for that is because we can't. The data is held by many, many different, innumerable organizations. And we will never have control over the semantic structure of the data. But we have to recognize that the semantic structure of the data as we see it has a huge impact on our ability to use it. And so we need to infer and accommodate for different semantic structures rather than to enforce our own semantic structure on the data. And the last two, it's very easy to look at these wonderful tools that we have and start to predict things down the road. And it's really easy to get caught up in that. But the real thing that we need to remember is the further down we look, it's like a telescope, the more wobbly the view is. The further out we go, the further out we look, the less likely we are to be looking at what's actually going to happen. And the corollary to that is that as we deal with this, and this is the one thing that if you walk away here with only this, it's what I want you to remember is that all of these tools and models are just that. They are abstractions designed to help us better think about the way things work. They are not representations of reality. They are abstractions that help us understand certain aspects of reality and to help build models. But we always have to get back to the fact that what is represented by these models is not reality. It's a tool for us to understand that. And so we will have many models that look at the same thing and give us different results, and that's okay, because the different models give us insight into different aspects of what's going on. So bottom line, we have a great team. We have the access to the models. We are operational. We are in negotiations with our first customers to actually provide services. And I invite you all to come join Rick Jackson and Dave Hammond and the rest of the C4UC team for their tech suite. And I hope you'll find what we do fascinating. Thank you.